Hi everyone, I'm Colleen. Welcome back to my channel, Colleen Medley Makes. If you enjoy DIY and home decor content, as well as insights from living car-free in Southern California, hit that subscribe button to follow along. As I've mentioned in previous videos, my fiance and I recently moved from New York City to the South Bay of Los Angeles. As a little bit of background about us, we both have graduate degrees in urban planning and work full-time in the planning field. So we're very passionate about things like walkability, public transit, housing affordability, sustainability, and ways that the built environment impacts people's day-to-day lives. And coming from living in a place like New York City, where there's a lot of density and significant public transit infrastructure and inherent walkability, we could get anywhere we needed to by train, by bus, or by foot. So we had absolutely no need to own a car in New York. And there's nothing revolutionary about that, right? Everyone in New York gets around by public transit and by walking. It's much more unexpected to know someone that owns a car. So when we made the decision to live in Southern California, we kind of entered into it with this understanding that we would choose to not own a car. Neither of us had the desire to drive regularly in this congested, high traffic environment. We didn't want to take on the cost of car ownership, and it aligned with our values to live car-free. Plus, we wanted to prove to ourselves and others that it was possible. There are a number of factors that allowed us to do this, and also considerations we made in choosing exactly where to live that made it doable. So I'm going to share a list of 5 considerations we made in choosing to live car-free, which hopefully can help or inspire you if it's something that you're thinking about. Number 1 is work flexibility. I first want to acknowledge our massive privilege that contributes to our ability to do this. We both have well-paying jobs and a certain level of flexibility that allows us to minimize our commutes. These circumstances are one of the key elements that makes living car-free possible for us. My job is 100% remote, so we were able to choose where we lived based on proximity to my partner's workplace. Our priority was to live within walking or biking distance, if not within easy public transit access to his office. We ended up being able to live within walking distance of his job, which means on weekdays I have 0 commute and he has a 20-minute walk commute. Neither of us need access to a car to get to work. Now, if we both had to work in person and had jobs located on opposite ends of the city, it would be much more challenging to live car-free, particularly without access to major public transportation infrastructure. In that scenario, our calculus for where to live would be quite different, and we instead would have prioritized close proximity to major public transportation hubs that would connect us to both workplaces, if that was even possible. So I acknowledge that our particular circumstances made it possible, given that my job requires no commute, we could prioritize locating close to my partner's job. If you have any flexibility in your workplace or your partner's workplace, I encourage you to consider whether you can live within close proximity to the workplace of the person whose job has the least flexibility. This alone constitutes the majority of a person's day-to-day transit trips. So if you can minimize that piece and not need to rely on a car for it, that would put you at a major advantage. Number 2, proximity to daily needs. Our next priority in deciding specifically where to live was proximity to our day-to-day needs. For us, this really just included a pharmacy and a grocery store. Once you have a radius around your workplace, you can start to look at proximity to these other day-to-day needs. If you can meet those needs within that radius, that's a great majority of your car dependence eliminated. For us, we have access to multiple major grocery stores within a 20-minute walk, as well as a corner store just a block away for any last-minute needs, and multiple pharmacies within a couple of blocks. We also have close proximity to hair salons, barbers, a bike shop, lots of restaurants, and other retail stores. This is great for us to know that we can always walk out our door or hop on a bike and access anything we might need on a day-to-day basis. But the reality is we actually get most of our groceries and household products delivered. While we do walk to the farmer's market once a week and pick up our produce and other local favorites there, we do rely on delivery from places like Thrive Market and Whole Foods for the rest of our groceries. This is something that we were already doing in New York City to save time and effort, and so we've continued to do it in California. Given the prevalence of grocery delivery and meal delivery services, there's less of a need for a car to go get groceries. But it was still an important consideration for us to know that we had multiple options within walking distance. Number 3 is a transportation needs analysis. Now, this is something I would recommend you do if you're considering going car-free, just to have a better understanding of what your transportation needs really are. For us, the great majority of day-to-day trips would be to work and for our daily needs, as mentioned in the previous point. And beyond that, we needed to really think about what would be the other places that we need to travel to on a regular basis. So we thought about what we might do on a typical month and the frequency of those activities. Some categories that we thought about were going out to eat at restaurants, entertainment like going to the movies or a museum or a concert, recreation like going for a hike or a workout class, medical appointments or other life admin like the DMV or going to the doctor or the dentist, social, meeting up with friends for book club or game night or to go out to dinner, and then long distance travel, so going on vacation, whether that's traveling by plane or locally somewhere that can be reached by car. Then we thought about how frequently we might do something in each of those categories to get a feel for how many trips on any given month we might be taking. And then also the proximity of those trips. How local are they versus within the greater Los Angeles area? I put together this pie chart to kind of visualize the trips that we might take on a given month and what percentage goes towards local trips versus a little bit further distance trips. And in doing this analysis, you can see that the great majority of trips are things that are local. For the most part, work and day-to-day needs, which based on my previous points, we prioritized having those within a close proximity that was walkable or bikeable. And then further distance trips are a much smaller percentage of trips that we would take on a monthly basis. Given this calculus, it didn't really make sense for us to own a car just for that small percentage of trips, things like social, recreation, and entertainment, when our day-to-day needs were met without a car. Instead, we can rely on a combination of public transportation, ride-share services like Uber and Lyft, short-term car rentals, and rides from friends and family. Altogether, we felt comfortable that we would have a high quality of life that met our daily needs and still spend less per month than we would owning a car, which brings me to the fourth point, costs. The cost of car ownership is massive. It's not just your car payment, it's also insurance, parking, fuel, maintenance. According to data from AAA, the average cost of owning a car in Los Angeles is over $1,000 a month. And I think that's on the low end. If you own a car, even if it's not in Los Angeles, comment down below with an estimate on how much you spend on your car per month. Given this average, we'd have to be spending more than $30 a day in Ubers in order to even meet that same cost of car ownership. And that's just not our reality. Again, since our workplace and daily needs are met within walking distance, on a typical weekday, we're not in need of a car. So because we're not putting that over $1,000 a month into owning a car, we're able to afford to spend a little bit more money on rent, allowing us to live in closer proximity to the things that we need. We're able to live in a more walkable area that's in close proximity to restaurants and shops and grocery stores, as well as my partner's workplace and the beach, which, by the way, also adds significantly to our quality of life. We also live in a building with some amenities, so we have access to a gym, meaning that we don't have to travel to go to the gym or pay an extra gym membership fee. Now, we still need to allocate some money towards transportation costs so that we're able to take those trips mentioned in my previous point, like going to a museum or on a hike. But even with budgeting in that cost, we're coming in under the $1,000 a month that it would cost to own a car. Plus, we have access to public transportation, which is a significantly less expensive option for getting around. Which brings me to point number 5. Public transit access. Now, public transportation in Los Angeles certainly has a long way to go, and I admit that that's a major shortcoming in the feasibility of living car-free here. Often when I go on Google Maps to look for the directions somewhere, it will say that it's going to take 3 times as long to take public transit as it would to take a car. And that is not a reasonable trade-off. Also, when the frequency of service is 40 minutes to an hour between buses or trains, it's much more difficult to rely on. You have to very carefully align your timing and plan ahead, and is often not feasible to use depending on how much time you're spending somewhere or what time you need to leave. All that being said, I am able to use the bus system locally here in the South Bay, and I've had a great experience. Travel times are generally comparable to the amount of time it would take in a car. The fare is only $1, and I'm often one of the few people on the bus. I joke that it's my private car service when I get on and I'm the only one on board. But it definitely takes planning ahead. It's not really a walk up and go type of transit system like in New York City. For my current needs, I can usually ride the local bus to go to my book club in Hermosa Beach, or going out for a date night in Manhattan Beach, or often on my DIY and thrifting adventures that will require me picking up items from Facebook Marketplace or stopping into local shops. But when it comes to traveling farther distances, like when we have family or friends visit and they want to go see the Hollywood sign, or we want to check out an exhibit at a museum in LA, the public transit option usually doesn't make sense. In those cases, we rely on rideshare apps like Uber and Lyft, and depending on how far we're traveling, they can be expensive rides. I typically find that it's about $1 for every minute that you're in the car. But given that we're only going distances like these 1 or 2 times a month, it's still nowhere near the cost of owning a car. Plus, you get to be in the back seat instead of being the one navigating LA traffic. If you're someone that wants to go out every night and explore new neighborhoods and try new places all the time, this might not be something that works for your lifestyle. But for us, who generally spend most weeknights at home and venture out locally most weekends, extending our reach beyond that every few weeks, this value proposition really makes sense. It encourages us to explore our local neighborhoods and utilize public transportation when we can. And as a result, we spend much less on transportation and have a higher quality of life on a day-to-day basis living car-free. Okay, so those were my 5 considerations when thinking about living car-free. If you have any ideas of other things to consider, definitely leave a comment below. I'd love to hear from you. And I hope this video was helpful and inspired you to consider living car-free. Thanks so much for watching.